What is up, everybody? Fire Lotus here. In advance, if you hear any loud noise or construction noise, I really can't help that. One of my neighbors are doing construction work, so there will be a little loud noises. And of course, if you hear dogs barking, that would be my other neighbors. There's nothing I can do about that. But on this video and in this video, I will go over retrograde, just in general, retrograde, what that means. And basically, I'm going to go over the fundamental of a retrograde. I'm not really going to touch over each planet and how the planets really... because I'm not an expert when it comes to astrology at all. But last year, I've been studying and learning tips on retrogrades. Of course, I've known about retrogrades for probably about 7 years, and it's really funny because retrogrades didn't really... well, no, I'm not going to say that. I was going to say they didn't really affect me until I discovered them, but I think it's more the lines that I didn't know that was happening, and me understanding or me learning about retrogrades, I guess, put a light or kind of highlighted areas where it was happening at. I used to freak out, and retrogrades... honestly, as much as they can be extremely scary and basically shake the very foundation to what your life is, at the end of the day, it's like a wildfire. Now, before I really get into this and what that means, there will be another tidbit at the end of this video where I will go over what I've experienced and what I've learned about how cannabis can be applied into your practice. Not an expert. I'm still doing studies. It's just really kind of hard to actually find information on cannabis and magical practices. But yeah, tidbit last video. Alright, last bit of this video. So, to begin, last year was the year that I really truly understood the reasons we have retrogrades. Well, not the reasons we have them, but I understand that they're not a negative thing. In reality and in retrospect, they're actually, and they can be really fucking beautiful. In a total destruction has to happen, or chaos or a wildfire has to happen, but come that next spring, it's one of the most beautiful sights. And what I mean by that is, last year, we had 8 to 9 planets go into retrograde, either one after the other, or at one point last year, they were all in retrograde in one aspect, or in one period. And it shook the very foundation to my life, and honestly, it flipped it upside down. Now, with that, I have discovered that it wasn't necessarily just the retrogrades. I myself had kind of set something up without me knowing it, and that will be the second video that I will be doing today. So I'll upload this first, so just wait around for the second one to understand that more. But retrogrades in this video. Excuse me. When those planets went, or when the planets began the retrograde, my entire life and everything that I'd known had flipped upside down. And what I mean, it had flipped upside down. My career that I'd had, due to things outside my control, we got laid off at the beginning of the year. And then I think it was at the beginning of summer and like the end of spring was when everything just kind of flipped, or like it was building up, and then I believe it was June. I want to say it was June when it really kicked off, and it was just like shit hit the fan completely. Everything that I'd known, everything that I'd considered my life at that aspect flipped upside down. I moved back to Alabama. I moved in with my grandmother. I had to take care of her because her health was declining. That in itself is going to be another video, because that was a very spiritual... Last year was a very spiritual year for me, in the midst of all this chaos. And earlier I had stated that retrograde is basically like a wildfire. And the reason I say that is because after a wildfire, after the entire forest has been scorched and basically everything has been burned, or certain areas have been burned and scorched, after that, or the springtime, during the burn and everything, it resets that ecosystem. It completely resets it. And in a way, it actually makes it stronger, because the nutrients in the soil is 10 times better. And actually, on top of that, in California, I learned of a poppy, and I believe it's called the fire poppy or the wildfire poppy, because it only happens right after a wildfire. And the reason that is because the seeds lay dormant in the soil, and it takes the environment. I believe it has something to do with the heat or the smoke and what it does to the soil and everything, but it creates the perfect environment for those poppies to just explode in life. Now, they only, I believe their lifespan is like 12 to 24 hours, possibly like 2 days, and then of course they die. But it's one of the most beautiful, like, they're gorgeous flowers. And what I realized from that, and the reason I say retrogrades are like wildfires, is because a retrograde, when a planet goes into retrograde, and depending on what that planet represents, as in like career, finances, stuff like that, certain areas of your life can either get flipped upside down. Things can be revealed to you, like a friendship or a relationship or a career that has looked perfect for you. Say you've been working there for 3 months now, 4 months, 6 months, and then all of a sudden your dream place turns into a nightmare, or your car breaks down, or a trip doesn't pan out the way you want it to, or, for example, stuff happens and you have to completely relocate. All this stuff that I used to consider like really bad, and I was like, oh my god, the universe is against me. Why is this happening to me? For one, why not me? What makes me so special that I am protected from all this bad shit that happens to everybody else around us? One of the lessons that I had to stop and ask myself during the retrogrades. But I also realized is what the universe is telling you during a retrograde, or when stuff goes awry during or basically it goes, shit hits the fan. What the universe is telling you with that is basically you have been giving time and energy and resources to basically cancer. You're feeding something that at the end of the day, or at the end of it, the long run, they or the situation is going to hurt you, or basically they're using you, or it's a parasite basically, and you're just feeding it because you're blinded by the illusions that situation has presented itself with. That's also why during retrogrades, especially I believe Mercury retrograde, due to just the simple fact the planet rules over communications and stuff, you're not supposed to start a new job. You're not supposed to start anything new. No new projects, no new things. And again, all these retrogrades that happen, or when retrogrades happen, some planets go into retrograde and nothing really gets affected in your life. That has to do with the planets in your birth chart, the planets that are going retrograde, and then it also has to do with just how your life is in general. Due to that is, I've also realized that retrogrades also affect patterns. Like if you have a pattern or an endless loop in a way in something in your life that during different aspects and ages in your life, that situation is still came back, just, different people, different environment, same situation. Those will definitely be highlighted. And what it is the universe is telling you, look, this is no good for you. So we're going to rip it away, or, it's going to fall out. It's going to basically you're going to have a fallout, or when stuff goes away or stuff is revealed and it's bad and everything feels like your world is just burning down around you. Remember that sometimes it takes burning your house down, or burning your world down, burning all those bridges, to have a garden that you've always wanted, to have your dream. And I did want to point out, when I'm speaking all of this, I'm getting chills, which is my way of saying that it's kind of my guides telling me that I'm keep going. I'm speaking my truth. But with that, look at what's happening during these retrogrades, not at a negative way. Of course you're going to freak out. That's natural. But for one, there are crystals that you can carry with you or have around you, that can help. Now, you would have to look up specifically during that time what planet is in retrograde and what crystal can associate it with that to protect you. Personally, I've always stated it before, smoky quartz is my number one during any retrograde, because it helps, it can help filter out negative or anxious thoughts. Those thoughts that you have, and sometimes due to like anxiety or something, you kind of keep having, but you don't want to manifest. So in a way, it's like a dream catcher for your thoughts. It filters out the anxious ones and helps the good ones pass through. But during these retrospects, and last year per se, my entire world flipped upside down. Every single time a planet went retrograde, directly, some aspect of my life would directly be affected. And thanks to me doing more research, I'd also discovered a YouTuber that if you follow any of my social medias, I've shared her before. And just my thing, I'm not going to mention her name, but I understood, and for the first time, I kind of changed my perspective to look at, okay, why is this going the way it is? And it wasn't until actually I moved back to Florida, and I moved back in October of last year, I believe. Yeah, I think it was October of last year. But it wasn't actually until like January of this year, or spring of this year, that I actually was able to look back on everything that had happened. And I understood why those things happened, or why that person or that friend or that situation is no longer in my life. It's because it wouldn't have helped me in any way. I was feeding something that basically I was tending and feeding a garden that was poisonous. And if I would have continued doing it, it probably would have killed me, or, something like that. Basically, when things fall out, or trips go awry, or plans go awry, it's the universe's way of saying that it wasn't supposed to happen. Now, again, that's not saying every single time during a retrograde, every bad thing, it's a deep spiritual meaning. I'm not saying that necessarily, because, like, say, for Mercury, technology goes awry all the time. Sometimes planets do just kind of affect things. But don't look at it at a negative aspect. Because I've personally realized the times that I did, like, hyper freak out about it. Like, I was hypersensitive. I blamed everything on the retrograde. It kind of, in a way, it made it worse. It was like a curse in a way. I was setting myself up, so, like, in a way, because I was focusing on all the bad stuff that was happening, I was also attracting more, in a way, negative stuff, because I was just focusing on that, when I wasn't focusing on the new things that literally last year there were things and events that had happened, and as soon as they happened, and those doorways and those, those forests were wiped clean, and it was new soil and everything, it was like new doors were opening right as it closed out. And those doors and the paths that opened up led me to, well, for one, who I am now, spiritually, it made me grow. I've grown so much because I've realized that when stuff, when stuff goes bad in our lives, or when stuff doesn't go to plan, it's not the universe punishing you. It's either a sign from above, from your loved ones, from your guides, or from the universe, or whatever you believe in. It could be a sign saying, hey, you wasn't supposed to do this because this would have happened. Now, with that and what I've just said, because people have tarot card, people that use divinations and tarot cards and everything like that, and just how we are curiosity, would you really want to know how it worked out? Think about that. Like, I don't know why I said that. That was a random tidbit that I threw in there. But during retrogrades, of course, do a little research. Do a research of what the planet rules over, what that planet rules over. And then look at your birth chart. Now, your birth chart, you get the location. You don't have to have the location, but the more information you have, the more specific it is. A birth chart or a natal chart is basically, it is a map or a picture of where the stars were the exact moment you were born. And with that, depending on what planet was in, or depending on where the planets were in your chart, it breaks down your personality, it breaks down aspects of you, it breaks down fears, it breaks down hobbies. They're scary accurate. But with those, it also helps you, it can help with if a full moon is going to affect you. You have to do a lot of research. I'm personally still doing research. That's why I'm not really going over it. I'm just sharing the information that I have. And at the end of the day, my videos, they are not to honestly follow step by step. They're just informational videos of me sharing knowledge that I have. And if you walk away learning one or two things, I'm happy with that. Now, with retrogrades, see, mentally, I'm going to go over everything. Yeah, I believe I went over everything. Now, with that being said, cannabis. Cannabis for me is more of a spiritual aspect. I've learned that it can help me get into a meditational state. It can help commune with the ancestors. And if you don't like using tobacco, or if you don't smoke tobacco, then cannabis can be an alternative. There are other herbs as well that you could use as a thing, but this is just my knowledge and my thoughts on what it can be used as. Especially if any of your ancestors partaked in cannabis while they were living. I've noticed that when I do it, I have a couple of family members who used to use cannabis, and they definitely get a response. It's kind of funny what I get. It takes me back to one of my family members' houses and how it used to smell during the holidays. Anyways, you can use it to... I've used it in some spells for wishing, for manifestation, for enlightenment. I've definitely used it for enlightenment. For healing and healing spells, you can also use it because cannabis is healing. It's a healing plant. And so far, it's kind of all I have. I don't really have that much. I still have to do more research. It's just really hard because there's not a lot of references on cannabis and uses in magic. And if there are, I haven't discovered them yet. But I'm still doing research. Now, the crystals. I forgot to say that. Tidbit at the very end. Crystals that you can use during retrograde. Quartz crystal is very good. Smoky quartz is really good. Amethyst can be good. Like I said, you just have to research the planets and what happens during retrograde and what they rule over, and then research crystals that can help with like different aspects, like financially and stuff like that. But yes, I hope you like this video. If you're curious about what's on my face, I made a post on my Instagram, but basically it's a way for me to help, which some of it I've wiped off, but it's a trick that I've been experimenting with getting over my anxiety and helping me see my inner strength when I don't see it. But if you like this video, like it, share it, leave me a comment if you agree, if you disagree, if you learned something, if you want to know more, if you want to know something else, let me know though, please. Yeah, I hope you like this. Until then, I hope you are all during October, in the month of October. Yeah. Peace.